Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 57 for Friday, October 6th, 2023. My name is Justin Young. I'm joined, as always, by Alicia Utecht and OJ Duncan, and we have a special guest this week for the first time, a new faculty member here in Communication Studies, Dr. Christina Ivey.
Yay!
Hey, Christina. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about maybe your background and what it is that you teach and research.
Yeah, sure. So I am primarily a queer scholar. I really dive into queer identity, queer spiritualities, things like that. A couple of my papers have been about, well, they're not published yet because it's that part of academia where they're sitting in queue waiting for me to actually give them attention again. But a couple of papers over, queer gaming, queer identity within gaming, and one of them explores the way we tell queer stories within gaming, things like that. So really I'm just a big old queer. That's how I tell people.
Who also games.
Yes, exactly. I'm a gamer, basically.
We talk about the Gamer Awards each year when they have those. So tell us, for people listening who maybe we try to bring this up on the show and everything when, particularly there's a game that focuses on those sort of queer messaging or characters. But what sort of games are you looking at? What are of particular interest to you?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of the things that I study with queer gaming tend to end up being horror games, honestly.
Okay.
There's a really rich history in queer theory about that connects queer folks to horror simply because queer folks see themselves in the villain often, simply because a villain is someone that we I don't know, cast as the other, and people fear them for reasons that are often unknown to the general public, right? They go against the norm. They're often misunderstood, right? And so the way that
Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is
God, yes.
So over the top.
Yes. If you have never seen the documentary Scream Queens that talks about that film, I cannot recommend it enough, especially for spooky season.
I was just thinking, I was like, this is perfect for spooky season.
Oh my God, it's so good. But yeah, so a lot of the games that I end up looking at end up being horror games for that reason, just because it crosses over. There's a couple of games by indie game creators that are a little inappropriate. We cannot talk about. One of them is called Showering with Dad. So shh, it's okay. But mostly, yeah, it's a lot of horror gaming.
So what are some of those horror games?
So right now, and this will I'll talk about this game here in a minute when we talk about what we're playing, but things like Dead by Daylight,
okay,
for example, that's kind of one of the papers in my queue that I'm working on at the moment. A lot the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre game that's recently come out. I'm really excited for the what is it? The Killer Clowns from Space that's coming out. So a lot of the asymmetrical horror games, I think would fall a lot into that category for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. So you've talked a little bit about kind of the type of games and everything, but maybe tell us a little bit about kind of your history with gaming. How did you get into gaming as a kid, and maybe the sort of games that you like to play now?
Sure, absolutely. So my history of gaming goes back to when I was first born, actually.
Were you born with a Game Boy?
Not quite. I'm a little older than that. More my dad told my mom, was I need to go get this new gaming system for our daughter. And my mom was like, she's one. And so, but he went out and got an SNES, right? An original Nintendo. And so I've always had a gaming system in my house of some kind. I remember, so I had that in the house. And again, horror games. I had Nightmare on Elm Street. I had the Friday the 13th game that I played as, again, a 2 or 3-year-old child. And I was like, yeah, these are great. I remember the excitement when my uncle, who is only like 11 years older than me, brought over his PlayStation and showed me Resident Evil for the first time, and how scared I was when that, you see the first zombie and it turns around. I peed myself. I'm not gonna lie. It was
a great moment.
Exactly.
It's not quite as great as when the dog jumps through the window the first time.
Again, another pee moment. Basically, I just wore a diaper the entire run of that game. We also had a Nintendo 64, of course, what I consider to be the greatest console of all time. And that was how my sister and I settled arguments. We would play either Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart to see who was going to do the dishes. And then when PS2 came out and Kingdom Hearts came out, my little emo heart, right? My emo heart was complete. But yeah, I've always had some kind of system in my house. It's been a way of of negotiating relationships, of honestly, my home life was not the greatest, and so it was a way for my sister and I to be like in a room away from our parents. And so I've had a very long, loving relationship with games.
That's great. For obviously our listeners, you should have seen the look on both Christina and Alicia's face when Kingdom Hearts got brought up. I think there's a way you can judge game fans by how they respond to Kingdom Hearts. Yes. There's a certain type that's really into Kingdom Hearts.
It was that was my first exposure. So even though I had a PS2, I didn't play the Final Fantasy games. I just wasn't exposed to them because I had mostly played Nintendo. And so that was my first exposure to that type of gaming. And it, of course, I don't know if it's me being gay or just being neurodivergent. I don't know, but I fell in love with it.
No, that was the one. That was the ones for my sister and I. That was one of the big ones where, when we had half-hour turns on the PlayStation, she played Kingdom Hearts 1, I played Kingdom Hearts 2, and we would just trade off every 30 minutes.
I love that. Yeah, my sister and I played a lot. We, for whatever reason, she was really good at bosses, and I was good at puzzles. So when we played Resident Evil, I would get us through the mansion, and she would figure out, all the different big bosses that we go through. I remember playing Banjo-Kazooie and me getting through most of the game, and then for whatever reason not being able to beat the final boss, and she sits down and gets it in the first shot. I was so mad, but also I was like, you know what? As long as it's beat.
Yeah. I think that's always interesting. If you have a sibling, how many games become co-op that aren't actually co-op, that you sort of create them into co-op games?
For sure. In my house, it was pretty much all of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are happy to have you on board for the podcast this week, and obviously happy to have you joining the faculty here at SIU and comm studies in particular. All right. Well, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into what we've been playing, unless somebody really has something they want to share about their week. I know Alicia's going to tell us it's that time of the semester.
I'm actually not, is the thing.
I was going to be like, you're not wrong.
Yesterday was definitely that time of the semester because it was raining and it was gross out and my umbrella broke in the rain.
Oh, no.
But today, the sun is shining. It's starting to actually feel like fall instead of summer. Today, I'm happy.
I feel like yesterday kind of felt like fall with the just downpour constant.
No,
it's
downpour
the sad
is spring.
part of fall.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair.
I always hate when there's just a downpour because there's always something going on campus that I want to go to. And I'm like, I don't want to walk in this. And then I feel like I'm a child for caring about getting wet.
No, I had a therapy appointment yesterday in one of the buildings on campus, and they were like, oh yeah, like you can drive over, but I was like, I don't know where this parking lot is, so I'm just gonna walk because it's my first time going to this place. I'm just gonna walk. And like I said, my umbrella broke while I was walking, and I was just like, doggone it. And I looked, I'm like, I literally could have parked right next to the sidewalk, come into the covered area and been fine.
I mean, that's pretty fitting, though, than to go into the therapist and be like, look.
I was just so glad. I was like, thank God I'm not a superstitious person, because literally my umbrella broke in half, so like I could not close it.
Oh, no.
So I had to walk in there with the open umbrella, and I was like, thank God I'm not superstitious, because that would have...
But I think Christina's right. At least you had something to talk to the therapist about,
True.
right? It's not one of those where you go in and you sit and you go, nothing much is going on.
It's like, this umbrella is a metaphor for my life.
All right, so let's go into what you've been playing. Alicia, why don't you start us off? What have you been playing?
So, like I said, even though today is not that time of the semester, this week has been. I have really not had time to play anything. I played a little bit more of Legends Arceus, but I'm still, I think I'm making my way towards Ursaluna right now, so still very early in the game, still haven't really done a whole lot.
Did Arceus come out this year or last year?
Last year.
Okay.
Both Legends Arceus came out like
January.
Yeah, like January, February of 22. And then Scarlet Violet came out like November of 22.
Okay, that sounded right. I get lost. Like games that came out in January feel like they came out 2 or 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So
games that came out this summer feel like they came out 3 years ago. Tears of the Kingdom has been out for 6 months. Like somebody pointed that out in one of my Discord chats the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're right.
There's so much coming out. Like it's very easy to forget. Like, I mean, there are games that came out at the beginning of the year, and I know when we get to the end of the year, I'm going to forget them.
Yep.
So I've started trying to make a list on my phone so I can just keep it updated and everything.
Yeah. I know, like, was Marvel Snap this year or last year?
That was last year.
No idea.
I mean, it's still going. There's like, there was like a $100 bundle, $150 bundle they were selling on there the other day.
Oh,
Must
my
have been
word.
the gays. If it was that high.
What?
I said it must have been gay people if it was that high.
Must have been
Yeah.
all the gay characters.
Because remember they had those 2 characters and they were like $80 for like 2 characters. And you told me, you were like, yeah, that's because both those characters are lesbians. And I was like,
Yep.
I was wondering what the catch with them was.
Gay folks and their expendable income. Look
There's this stereotype that everyone has. Okay, so playing a little bit of Arceus still.
Yeah. I'm still really enjoying it. I'm still, I mean, I love Scarlet and Violet for the storyline. Legends Arceus is just so much prettier. Like, you can really tell it was different teams working on it. It just, like, even beyond, even setting aside, like, Scarlet and Violet's glitches that it, especially when it started out, the graphic glitches that it had, and it's still just so vastly different in just, the textures and just how clean everything looks in Arceus versus Scarlet and Violet. Definitely doesn't look like it is a AAA $70 game. Again,
Scarlet and Violet, you mean?
yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, no, I was
Yeah.
just checking.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like, again, I love Scarlet and Violet. I think that they have the best storyline out of any mainline Pokemon game we've had yet. But, man, I wish it looked as pretty as Arceus does.
Yeah, obviously we're talking a lot about the Switch 2. It seems fairly certain that's coming next year sometime. And the Pokemon games are one of those franchises where I think you can look at it and go, this they need an overhaul on these games, right? Like just graphically.
Well, and I'm wondering, I have no basis for this whatsoever. This is just purely in my head. But I'm wondering if we might get, because they did Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. I would love to see a redo of Platinum on the Switch too.
Yeah.
Because like one of the things that came up with BDSP, obviously the chibi art style was a choice, but then also a lot of people who were complaining about it had to kind of be reminded, like, a lot of the things that people really love from Gen 4 are not from Diamond and Pearl. They're from Platinum. They overhaul some of the 8th Gym Leader's team is completely different. Some of the Elite Four have completely different teams. A lot more of the storyline in terms of Giratina and the distortion world. It's like, that's all Platinum exclusive. So, like, a lot of these problems you have with BDSP, you had with the original Diamond and Pearl, too. It's not all Game Freak killing your nostalgia.
And I think there's some logical sense to that, too, that if you're going to make a new Pokemon game, you're going to make, your mainstream new generation Pokemon game, you maybe don't want to launch the system with because there's not going to be a huge install base there.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a remake, right, that lets you like sort of test out the capabilities of the new system and kind of experiment with it, and then roll that knowledge over into the new generation game that you put out and everything.
Yeah.
And by
it's
that time,
realistically, they won't do Platinum. They might, more realistically, they would probably do the Gen 5 remakes at launch and redo Black and White. But I would love to see Platinum, personally.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. And like it seems like we're going to get Switch news sooner rather than later. Like by, I would say February of next year, we should know something.
I'm even wondering, if they'll at least confirm for real beyond just all the leaks and speculation. Like, yes, Switch 2 is happening. I'm wondering if they'll confirm that before Christmas.
Yeah, and I mean,
I don't expect them to give us a release date at Christmas, but I kind of expect them to confirm it at Christmas.
Well, I expect what we'll start seeing here soon is games being announced for the next generation Nintendo system. Because we get that a lot where third-party publishers start saying, and this will come to the next generation Nintendo system. And at that point, maybe that sort of forces Nintendo's hand to say, it's not coming in the next 9 months, right? So, because they don't want people not buying a new Switch this Christmas. Yep. They got OJ for his birthday. They want to get other people for Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Is that it?
Yeah, that's really been it. I'm really hoping this weekend to be able to sit down and watch Castlevania Nocturne, because I still have not watched that yet. So one of my friends almost spoiled things, and I'm like, if you do this, I will end you. Shut up.
Can I spoil an Easter egg?
No.
There's an Easter egg in it for Giant Bomb, which is like one of the most amazing Easter eggs I've ever seen.
I just said no.
You don't even know what it is. That's not spoiling anything.
I don't care. No, but I'm really hoping, because one of the local theaters around here is doing Dracula this weekend. So I'm going with a friend tomorrow night to see Dracula, and then I'm going to go watch Castlevania.
Spooky season.
Then you can finish it up watching Dracula Dead and Loving It.
No, I'll finish it up going back to probably to Lucagen and Proton John's Symphony of the Night run, because that's just sheer silliness, and I adore it.
All right. Christina, you teased us a little earlier with what you've been playing.
So I have, so with just moving here, I actually didn't get all of my stuff until like a week or two ago. The movers took a long time to get here. And so I haven't set up my PC yet. And prior to doing that, like during the summer, I was playing Diablo 4. with some people.
What do you think of Diablo 4?
I really like it. To be honest, it's my very first time to play Diablo, period.
Okay.
And really, I bought it because the people that I was playing with, they were like, hey, we like play with us, and so I was like, okay. I thought it's really beautiful. Like I've never really played a game like this, period. And so I enjoyed it. I'm having fun with it. I'd only gotten through one character. I played as a necromancer to begin with, and so I was excited after the move to start. I'm gonna do rogue next, and then kind of move on from there. But I was enjoying it, honestly. But because I haven't had a chance to set up the PC yet, I actually put together the PlayStation 4 last night, or got everything hooked up, and played a DBD with my partner, because it's like one of those things that if you don't live in the same space, having those types of games is a way to spend time together, basically. And so we pulled that out and played a couple of rounds. Like, I definitely got my butt kicked. I think I escaped. No, I didn't. She escaped. I did not, because I saved her right at the end, because that is the type of player I am. So that's basically been it. But really, any of those types of games where, like I said, that allows me to connect with other people, right now is kind of what I'm focusing on.
So, Dead by Daylight, do you have the Nicolas Cage DLC?
I just bought it last night. Cause it's not only is he just lovely, and the way that he just makes fun of himself, and I watch DBD a lot on Twitch as well, and that's how I was able to keep up with it, even with my system, not with me. And honestly, his perks are some of the most fun perks that have come out of DBD in a long time. The fact that they just they're kind of meta, and they allow you to sort of play with what's going on. The fact that they focus on the relationship between the survivor and the killer. I don't know, for me, it's like they took a moment to make fun of themselves in many ways, and be meta in that way. And so I love that DLC. It's probably one of my favorite DLCs.
But when are we getting actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf?
Oh my God, that would be the most terrifying.
He would be the killer, right?
Yes.
Like, Nicolas Cage is not the killer.
No. And I make the joke that outside of Spooky Myers, when and you don't realize that they're there, and you look up and he's there, and then you again, pee yourself. Apparently this is a theme for me. But outside of that, that game has not been scary to me in a long time. That would make it scary.
Just the entire time you have the song playing instrumental in the background, except for when he pops up. Shia, surprise!
No.
You could have a whole series of that. You could have Army Hammer.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, Justin, do you know the song I'm referencing?
No.
Oh no.
Okay. I'm going to show you this after the podcast. There is a video that is an entire beautiful choral production of Shia LaBeouf live, and the whole thing is you're lost. It's in the woods, alone at night. Your car broke down. There's nowhere to go, and suddenly you see him, Shia LaBeouf. And so he's hunting you, and you are trying to survive. But it's a song. It's 10 years old. How do you not know that? OJ, you're also giving me a blank look.
I've never heard of that at all.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you. I'm this is an icon. I don't know how you guys don't know this.
Because it is terrifying.
It is beautiful. My best friend and I actually convinced one of our college professors to show it in class, because we were talking about second person in a creative writing class, and so we were like, oh yeah, show this as a good example.
I will point out that Armie Hammer is not a meme.
Yeah,
Armie Hammer is actually a cannibal.
Armie Hammer is like
That's why I was like, I don't think you know what I'm talking about, because I was joking with actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
No, this person, like, and I didn't know about Armie Hammer until the drive here. Like, it was one of the podcasts I listened to on the way here. And so I have just recently found out about the Armie Hammer situation. And I love, what was that movie? The Call Me By Your Name or whatever?
Yeah.
I loved that movie, right? And so to find out that, like, he
I mean, he's a pretty good actor, and like to find out that he's a real weirdo.
Oh my God, it's so crazy.
So can I have a quick synopsis, because I have apparently I'm behind on all of my cannibal information, because I don't know about Shia LaBeouf or Armie Hammer.
So Armie Hammer, right, is the older man in that relationship in that movie, Call Me By Your Name, right? His family actually, generational wealth kind of thing, and he just is. I don't want to say he's a narcissist, but he shows narcissistic behavior, right? Just was dating somebody that he stalked and terrorized and abused, and it turns out that he was eating folks.
Yeah, he was like making comment. She shared the screenshots of the messages that he sent her, and he was like talking about wanting to literally eat her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any evidence that he actually has been a cannibal, but there's like lots of disturbing evidence that he is
cannibalistic
really into it.
tendencies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at anyone who had a lot of generational wealth if they were a cannibal, if we're being honest. But
no, we want to eat the rich, not be eaten by the rich.
I know. But
So like his the type of generational wealth where he's named after his grandfather, right? And like his grandfather was constantly asked, like, Armie Hammer, do you own Arm & Hammer, the like, what is it, baking soda? He got so tired of hearing that he bought that company. So, yeah, and
Wait, really?
And yes, true story.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's that type of generational wealth that's like, oh, I'm tired of hearing this. I'll just buy this whole company because it sounds like my name.
Oh my gosh.
And he's definitely one of those that like, these things do not impact me. These things do not. Yeah, I'm above this because I have so much money.
Yeah, he's apparently kind of a weird guy.
Yeah. I would like to clarify, Shia LaBeouf is not a real cannibal.
I picked that up, I guess. I mean, anything surrounding cannibals, fiction or true.
I feel like the thing with Shia LaBeouf is if you told me that about him, I would 100% believe it.
Yep.
That's true.
I would say, have you ever seen the gif of Shia LaBeouf in an empty theater audience standing up and just like clapping like mad?
That's the end of
That's
that.
the end of that video.
Okay.
No, I don't think I've ever seen that. But
So it was originally the guy who wrote the song had this dream where all this happened. And so he wrote the song as kind of like a funny thing. And then Shia LaBeouf found it and was like, we can make this a big production. And so Shia LaBeouf funded the whole actual like spectacle version that everybody knows.
So 2 versions of celebrity cannibals
Yes.
with wealth.
I mean, honestly, I don't want to meet either one of them in real life.
Fair.
both of those are disturbing, right?
I mean, this was also Shia during his like paper bag face era.
Right. But like if you told me tomorrow somebody wrote a song about you being a cannibal, I wouldn't be like, let me fund a music video for this. I would be like, I'm not a cannibal. That's weird. Like, I get the joke, I guess, but also I'm not going to invest in the joke.
To be fair, if I had money, I would probably lean into it.
I'll say it makes sense for Shia LaBeouf. Remember, just do it. Green screen, literally telling us put whatever you want here.
Yeah.
Like
My only memory of Shia LaBeouf in like the last decade has really been listening to an interview with the actress who played his sister on Even Stevens.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Ren. Never mind. Keep going.
Yeah, I think that's her name, right?
Yeah.
On the show. And Christy Carlson Romano.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
And she said that people ask her all the time, how's he doing? And she's like, we're not really brother and sister. And she said, I wish him well, but like we worked together and we weren't really friends. We were just coworkers. And I love that interview just because of that sort of breakdown of reality. And I feel like so many people are like, well, you work together. You must all love each other. And people are like, no, we just work together. Like, I wish that person well.
Yeah. Hope they're doing great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it always reminds me of Biff from Back to the Future. And people are always, he said people come up to him all the time and ask him, how's Michael J. Fox? And he's like, I guess he's fine. I haven't seen him in years. He's a nice guy. Nothing negative to say about him. We don't just hang out all the time. We don't live next door to each other.
It's like, this film was 30 years ago, right?
Shh, shh, shh.
That film is closer to 40 years ago at this point.
Oh man.
That actually did cross my mind as I was halfway through that sentence, and then I was like, no, I'm not going to make anybody feel too old here.
I think 85 is for the original Back to the Future.
So just because apparently I'm not up to date on Cannibals, is Michael J. Fox a cannibal?
No.
Okay.
Michael J. Fox seems like he's a real swell guy.
Okay.
No hideous stories have come out about Michael J. Fox.
I'm going to email Biff and ask him.
No, he does stand-up comedy, and he's got a song he wrote about Back to the Future.
I thought you were going to say he had a song he wrote about cannibals.
No, but he performs this song where he's like, here's the most commonly asked questions, and he performs it as a song. And it's pretty fantastic, so you can Google that. It's worth watching. All right, Christina, is that it?
Yes, that's it. we jumped pretty far.
I love how before the podcast we were like, maybe we'll stay on track this time.
Mario's going to listen to this, and 20 minutes into it, we're talking about cannibalism. He's just going to check right out. All right, OJ, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so to address that unhingedness, I'm gone 1 week. And y'all are talking about Harold, they're lesbians. You're talking about... I don't even remember. There was just so many weird fever dream conversations that were happening. And nobody drank coffee, and I drink coffee. And so you picked that 1 week. You were talking about Sea of Stars when I wasn't here.
There was the Sonic song that has Malcolm X's speech in it.
Which, so I when they were talking about your face, that's what I was doing. I was driving to St. Louis listening to this, and I was like, no, there is no way that Sonic had a Malcolm X speech in it. And so now I have to go play that game.
Not just listen to it, you have to experience it in context.
Yeah. Have we finally convinced you to play an actual good, not broken Sonic game as your first one?
Yes. Yeah, so...
That's a trick question.
Yeah, and so and now we're talking about cannibals. What's next week? What is next week?
It's devolving. Let's be honest.
Okay, so the past 2 weeks I'd mentioned I was playing Earthbound again. I finished it.
Aww.
And I surprise myself every single time that I play it for a couple of things. One of them is that I always forget that I need to use the fly honey on Barf. I think I mentioned this before.
Yep.
And I'm like, why is he so hard? I'm leveled up. And then at the end, I don't know if it was meant to be, but I've read a lot of stuff about the end being you're kind of aborting the main Gygus, the main enemy, right? Mm-hmm. And every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, I can really see that. You're giving him an abortion, essentially. And it's like, I'm walking through these. That looks like legs. It looks like I'm walking into a vagina to abort.
Yep.
Right. And so every time I'm like, wow, maybe I was imagining something, but then nope. Yeah, I just walked into a vagina. Yeah, but again, I love it. It's top 5 games ever that I've ever played. I don't think I would say it's probably top 2, and I don't think anything will ever push it out of those spots. But yeah, so it was nice to play that. And then I also went to play Bayonetta again. Because I started playing it last year, I think. And then I stopped. I didn't have time to play, and then I stopped. So, but then I got a new Switch, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna download this, play it again. Played
Talking
through
about
one.
the original, the first one.
Yeah, one, and then I'm part of the way through 2 again.
Okay.
And I always forget too that I love Bayonetta the character. I love Bayonetta the storyline. I love Bayonetta the moves that she does. Bayonetta the game, it's rough because like it's not as bad as it used to be because I'm not as much of a completionist as I was before. But like getting a pure platinum medal on some of those levels is just ridiculous. And so I just I'm playing through just for funsies this time, and I'm not trying to get all the pure platinum medals. But it's still I'm like maybe I should go back and do that. No. Maybe I should. No. Right. So, but I do love the Bayonetta cinematic universe essentially. just not the games themselves. Right.
I forget. Did you ever play 3?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
No. I'm gearing up to play it right now. I'll probably be buying it whenever I have money for it. I have no money right now, but as soon as I get money for it, I'll be buying it.
Understandable.
And what else? I was going through and playing a lot of, just briefly touching on some NES and SNES games. And I'm seeing Breath of Fire and Breath of Fire 2 there. I remember loving them. I don't know if they hold up, and I don't want to ruin it. So I keep on like looking at it and being like, "Oh, I loved these games. Should I try them?" I feel like they're not going to hold up very well. Yeah, actually, Justin nodding.
No, I don't know about those.
Okay.
I've never played the Breath of Fire games. I'm more nodding because I have that same fear of going back and playing a lot of older games. And you go back and you play them, and you're like, oh, this actually isn't very good.
Yeah.
And sort of what I attribute it to the game being challenging is just bad game design.
Yeah.
And it's not actually fun.
Yeah.
But I was 8 at the time and didn't know any better.
Right.
And it was the only game I had.
Yeah, Dragon Warrior 1, the first game I really owned, was so amazing, but I can't play it anymore. I can't really play any of the NES or SNES ones, if we're being honest.
Yeah, Dragon Warrior, I would imagine, be really difficult because it's such a simplistic RPG.
Yeah.
Like compared to what came later, the Final Fantasy, Super Nintendo games and stuff.
Yeah. And like Final Fantasy 1 I can replay, but Dragon Warrior I cannot. Up until it really went to Dragon Quest. Then I could start playing. Or not Dragon Quest. Right?
Okay, Dragon Quest is the original Japanese name, and it's now the name in the U.S.
Yeah. So
I also get that confused. I have to think every time.
Once they started getting named Dragon Quest, I can play a little bit, but Dragon Warrior is rough. And
they've released a remake of the original Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, and I haven't played it, but I've always wanted to go play it to see like what does that remake add to it? Because I mean that original game is real simplistic.
Yeah.
I mean it was fun at the time. I also enjoyed it at the time, but like when you go back to it now, I can imagine that game just seeming really simple.
Yeah, it really is. It's like heal more, hurt more.
Hit slime.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm looking at Breath of Fire, and I'm like, I'm probably gonna try it, and I'm just hoping it doesn't ruin my memories because I really love the series. What else? I can't remember. I think there was something else I was playing. I can't remember what it was right now. Yeah, and so I was on a quest to find a game that looks worse than Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch. And So Bayonetta's graphics are better than Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Scarlet and Violet on launch day had better graphics than Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch.
To be fair, Sindel's hair looked like the grass did on Scarlet and Violet.
Dude, I didn't even realize that was on the Switch.
Have you not seen it?
I have not.
Oh.
And so I'm making a mental note. I'm going to write it down to look it up.
It's special.
Oh, no.
It's definitely a game that exists on the Switch.
Yeah. So the full motion video looks fine on the Switch, as
Yeah.
I'm sure you know. But then once it switches to actual character models and not the full motion video, I've seen better graphics on the PlayStation 1.
Oh, no.
It's bad. It's very bad.
This is going to be so fun to go.
Yeah. And so I love Sindel, and one of Sindel's fatalities is that she walks up and she's like, "Who's your queen?"
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And each of the characters have like clothing item that you can adjust and change. Hers is like a little face mask thing. So as she's walking up to do this fatality, she says, "Who's your queen?" And until that point, it doesn't load the face mask, and then it pops up just out of nowhere.
Oh, no.
And these horrible, horrible graphics, like you know how there's like trees in like 3D games that are like the like two overlapping 2D models.
Yeah.
That's what her hair looks like, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, so no, the person whose hair is
I
the
was
entire
about to say
character.
her hair is her.
Yeah. And then the face looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid kind of. And then this thing pops up on her face, and then she like reaches in to like rip out your like skull and spine, and then the thing disappears off her face again.
What the?
Because it stops loading at that. It has to load at a different angle.
Oh,
And
no.
it's we're gonna watch some videos
Yeah.
after that.
We'll watch. After Shia LaBeouf, we'll watch this.
Yeah.
I think that's made even worse by the fact that on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox and PC, that's actually a really nice looking game.
Yeah.
And like to see what they did to the Switch version, it's not even like, oh, this is a sort of uglified version of that. It's like this is the version we took out and beat against the ugly tree.
Right.
I'll say, I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like it's the epitome of look how they massacred my boy.
Yeah.
It's really shocking.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, because I've watched a playthrough of the primary storyline in Mortal Kombat 1 just because I was interested to see like where they took it. I really like the what they did with the storyline. So and it's a gorgeous game on those systems. I watched it on PS5. Man.
This is quite the opposite.
Yeah. And so I asked for it for my birthday on the Switch, knowing that the graphics weren't going to be the same level. And it's ridiculous. And it's even more jarring because the full motion video looks great.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then like for like 10 seconds before each fight in the like it switches to the character models and it's like bam, you can see it and it's like, oh, that's horrible. Like it's pretty unplayable.
That sucks.
And I love Mortal Kombat, but like I'm not going to play it until they patch it somehow because there's glitches some of the characters get boners and smack people in the face with them, and it's just a glitch because that part of their body it just like really pulls out a pixel. Yeah, and then so like I've seen Sub-Zero and Scorpion like fencing. And whenever you do a brutality and like you do the uppercut when their head pops off, the head just starts floating there and it's stuck.
Oh,
It's perfect for spooky season.
Yeah.
Scary for all the wrong reasons.
And then the body falls and so
that uncanny valley scare.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And like normally like when I played 10 and 11 went through and just I beat it. I played all the characters. I went through everything and I just can't.
Oh man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's such a great game otherwise.
Yeah. And I got the deluxe edition too for the Switch. So paid all this money for my birthday for I should've
Cabbage
just got it.
Patch.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Cabbage Patch, but the cabbage is spelled with a K.
Yeah. Mortal Cabbage.
We won't play until you patch the game, Mortal Cabbage Patch.
That's just a Garbage Pail Kids game.
No, that's doing Garbage Pail Kids dirty. Honestly.
Actually, that Garbage Pail Kids game sounds better.
I think it is.
And-
I think it is, yeah.
Looked better than this.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, OJ?
Yeah, that's yeah.
So no, nothing else.
Sorry. I was gonna say so. Bayonetta, which was on PS2 or PS3, I think it was PS3.
Yes.
All right, it has better graphics than Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch. Both of them on the Switch has better graphics.
Yeah, like this isn't just this game can't be run at full graphic fidelity on the Switch. This is they butchered this.
Yeah.
Right? Like I mean, this is the sort of situation you can imagine there being a class action lawsuit. And
Right. Well, especially because you know, day one there's a 30 gig download that you have to get. That's with the actual cartridge in there. You still or the I can never remember what those are called.
Cartridge.
Cartridge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the cartridge and then 30 gigs on top of that. I had to get. Luckily, my anniversary is shortly after my birthday, so I got a new Switch. But then still, I had to get a micro SD card for space.
And that's like at that point, like just don't put it on the Switch.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if it, especially because you said it's unplayable.
Yeah.
Basically, like I would rather just like either watch other people play it if I don't have a system that has it, or just it's a waste of money basically. Oh, that's unfortunate.
And it's hard to do combos and stuff because it runs so slowly.
Yep.
And I'm proficient at combos.
Yeah, I am amazing, and I have Dead by Daylight for that because I have Dead by Daylight on every system, and I don't play it on the Switch because it is the difference between that and the PS4 or obviously the PC. Even the mobile version plays better, I think, than the Switch version. So it's
I mean, it's just a real shame because they did a really good job, from what I've seen, of porting 11, over to the Switch and everything, and to like just butcher this. And and I think you're right, Christina. Like, even to put this out at some point, like just don't put it out if you can't do a decent job. Like, don't do that to your fans because now your fans feel burned.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like the compromises we all know we're going to get with a Switch port, like this is beyond that.
Yeah, this was a slap in the face, even knowing that it was going to be rough. Yeah. Yeah, so that's all I have.
Okay. Let's see. I've got a couple of quick things here. So, OJ, we can talk about this a little. I am playing Sea of Stars still. I guess I don't have a whole lot to say because you have talked about this, and I talked a little bit about it last week. It's great, right? Like this feels like the game that has most closely gotten this right of recapturing that feel of the 16-bit, specifically era of RPGs. I think last week I said it's really more kind of 32-bit with like some of the graphical things and everything, but it's very much trying to echo that era of games. I'm really enjoying it. I'm kind of not super far into it because I've been taking my time with it. But, everything I've done with it so far is I've enjoyed. I have heard some people, and maybe you talked about this, but I know some people have complained that the ending maybe kind of falls off a little bit and isn't as strong as the rest of it. But, like that's also kind of true of a lot of those 16-bit RPGs.
That is fair, yeah.
The story is very front-loaded, and by the time you get to the end, they're like, yeah, you just got to kill this guy.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you like that era of RPGs, this is the one that has most gotten that right. There was Square, I feel like, has tried to sort of emulate this, and they've done things like what was that? Setuna or Satuna or something like that that they put out a few years back that just felt like a Pell imitation. This one feels like it's got that heart and charm to it that those games very much had, and so I'm enjoying that.
I will say too on Sea of Stars because I looked it up. The blue-robed shopkeeper, I guess, is a character from their previous game, The Messenger.
Oh, right,
okay,
yeah.
that would make sense.
So
then, I
that
guess.
explains a lot of what he's
The
talking about.
Okay. Because okay. That makes me feel better about that. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the ending.
Yeah.
Like the weirdness of the ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like the super end.
yeah, did you ever play The Messenger?
No.
So The Messenger is a very weird game that switches. There's a switch in that game about halfway through the game,
Yeah.
and that game becomes something very different than it starts out. And so, yeah, that would make sense. I wasn't even thinking about that. I knew that it was the same developer. I wasn't even thinking about making
People
that connection.
I really wanted to know what he said, so I looked up a YouTube video, and then from there, people in the comments were like, "Wow, it was so cool to see him back from the Messenger."
That's
Well, I
kind
guess I
of
know what I'm doing. My next game.
that's kind of neat. That like sort of meta connection linking their cinematic universe of games.
Well, I feel dumb for not looking that up now, I guess.
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't.
I don't think you need to feel dumb. I think that was just me needing answers.
If you've never played The Messenger, you would have no way of knowing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it is a good game. I would recommend The Messenger. It's a very Ninja Gaiden sort of harkens back to that. So I played Sea of Stars. I also played a little bit of a game called Dome Keeper. So this is a game where you are on an alien planet and you have a base under a dome, and people are coming and attacking that, and you have to beef up your defenses, and you do that by digging down under your dome and exploring the caves and everything underneath there, and you have to retrieve minerals and everything and bring them back up to your base, and then you spend those minerals and everything that you collect in order to upgrade your defenses and everything, to add more guns, to power them up and everything. It's really sort of a very simple looking game, and really kind of in concept is a fairly simple game, but it has that great sort of loop, that you are constantly like upgrading, getting stronger as you go through the game. And then the going down the caves is very fun to explore, and you can kind of dig out areas and everything. You can upgrade your digging utensils so that you dig faster and you can carry more with you back up to your base. So it's got that great sort of SteamWorld dig sort of loop to it. I think SteamWorld Dig is a much better series of games than this one is, but I also have enjoyed it. It's been fun playing it, and it's kind of a small little game. So I thumbs up to that so far. The other thing that I did this week is I bought something new. I bought a Steam Deck.
Okay.
So they had them on sale. That's the only reason I bought one. They had them marked like 20% off, so it was very enticing. I had wanted one and kind of balked at the price, and then when it got 20% off, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll spend this. I'm stupid. It was also my birthday, so I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I need a present for myself. Anyways, so I got it. I've set it up. I haven't done a lot of what I want to do with it, which is installing emulators and things so that I can really play some older games, which will tie into research and stuff that I'm working on. But it works remarkably well. I think, having not had hands-on with one till now, it works remarkably well. One of the first things I played on it, because this was like the killer app when the Steam Deck launched, because it launched around the same time the game did, is Vampire Survivors, which is kind of like a ridiculous game to play on this new expensive like portable system. But it runs well. And then I played a few other things. I played some of Dome Keeper and everything on it. I like the screen size. The controls feel better than looking at it you think the controls would. So the controls are very much kind of up at the top and kind of pushed out to the edges, which seems like it would be kind of uncomfortable. It's not once you're actually holding it. The thing I'll say about it is it's very big. It is a very large handheld to hold in your hands. It's not something you can, put in your back pocket and pull out when you're, waiting for the bus or something. It's just not comfortable in that way. And even lying in bed with it, which is where I've played it a lot, it's big enough that like you can't hold it up over your head for a long period of time. Like it's really one you need to kind of like rest on your chest, lying in bed and everything. Maybe that just means I'm a weakling. I don't know. But like, I feel like it's not. I can't hold it. It's just my arms get tired of like having them straight up over me for an extended period of time. But like. When I was setting it up and everything, so like it needed to download some sort of like firmware updates and some OS updates and everything. So this all runs off of Linux. So if you didn't know, it's not running Windows. It just boots directly into the Steam interface in Linux. So you can get out to the Linux interface if you want or need to, but you don't ever have to get out into that interface, which is interesting, right? Because they have managed to make a PC experience very consoleized in that way. But it does all these updates at the beginning, and the first couple of games I tried to install, it said, all right, installing these games, and then it popped up and was like, all right, they're installed, and I was like, okay, launch game, and the game wouldn't launch. And launch game, and it wouldn't launch. And I was like, okay, did I get a dud? What's wrong with this thing? And what it was that it was still downloading those OS and system updates, and those needed to be applied first before it would allow any of that to happen. I'm assuming because it's the first time. I don't think this is the way it normally works. But nobody told me that. Nothing popped up and said that. And so I think one of the things I see with this is like, I have a gaming PC. I'm used to Steam. I'm pretty good with computers. So I could kind of logic my way in working with this. This is not like buying a Switch.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't know how much of a problem that's going to be as I play more games. Obviously, some games work with this. There are some games that don't, that you can buy on Switch or on Steam. And, it tells you now on Steam, this game has been tested. It works. It doesn't. But it's not 100% that sort of console experience that you get from a PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo product. And so that's a negative. I think the size and weight of it is a negative. But the really cool side is I have a whole lot of games on Steam, and I can now play those anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So that makes it really convenient. And I don't travel a whole lot, but a lot of times I don't want to go sit at my PC. I want to like sit in front of the TV or do something else, and this makes that more doable. So kind of a thumbs up with some hesitation so far. All right, that does it for what we've been playing. Let's move into news. We have quite a bit of news. So we'll start off with some slightly good news, I guess. The Xbox chief Phil Spencer has said that Game Pass will have no games exclusive to the service. So what he means by this is they're not going to develop any original games that you can only play by subscribing to Game Pass. So there's not going to be a Tetris 99 or F-Zero 99 like you get through Nintendo. Everything they, that's what they're saying now, right? Obviously, this can change. This could change tomorrow. But, Phil Spencer is a pretty straight shooter. He doesn't tend to try to mislead people with his statements. So I think that is honestly their plan as of today or as of this past week when he made the statement.
Yeah. Is Phil Spencer a cannibal?
He is gobbling up Activision.
Okay.
So he does cannibalize game companies.
Okay.
Speaking of which, OJ, that's a nice transition you set up there for us, as Microsoft plans to finalize their Activision acquisition next week. So our long national nightmare might soon be over.
Or just starting, depending.
I feel like we've been talking about this the entire lifespan of the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think that's right because it happened very early on into the life of this. I mean, it might actually predate the very beginning.
Yeah,
our
because
first
I
episode.
think we started talking about it in the class.
Right. Yeah.
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 So,
Because I think it happened like beginning of February. Right.
And we started the podcast
and you were like,
in
class,
March.
you're not going to believe this big thing happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I could not believe it.
Yeah.
Like I was like actually in shock that morning. I was like, that's a major move in games. So this is kind of interesting. Last week we talked about that Tony Hawk 1 and 2 is coming to or did come to Steam this week. And then they've announced that Diablo 4 is coming to Steam now.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And that's supposed to be like the day before this whole deal closes that it's coming. And of course, Microsoft has been pushing like their games to release everywhere. So you can go buy the new Forza right now on Steam, right? You can buy it through the Windows Store, but they're also selling it on Steam. They're kind of selling it everywhere. And it's kind of interesting to see, like big Activision franchises like Tony Hawk, like Blizzard games, which are really kind of a shock because Blizzard had their own separate launcher with Battle.net, and now those games are coming to Steam. That's good. I mean, games being more places, not being like limited where they're available. So we'll see how this pans out. I feel like we're going to continue to talk about this deal and its reverberations for the lifespan of this podcast.
Yeah.
So that's all, at least mostly good news. We're going to move into some bad news. The layoffs in the game industry continue. Naughty Dog announced that they're laying off at least 25 contract developers. This is in the wake of negative reaction to their multiplayer shooter and internal reviews. So this is the Last of Us multiplayer shooter that they were developing. There are rumors that that game may have been put on ice and they may no longer be actively working on it. These are contract workers, so these are not, full-time employees in Naughty Dog. These were people that were brought on specifically to help with the development of games. They weren't, given full contracts and everything. We certainly know in academia what that's like. These are the adjuncts of the game industry. And so obviously sad, when anybody loses their job and everything, though maybe not quite as dire straits at Naughty Dog, obviously, because they're still running a series of hits there. A little bit more dark when it comes to Telltale Games. One of their developers came out and posted onto social media that they have laid off, quote, most of us in early September. This was from an artist posting onto Twitter, which we are not going to call it by its new name.
Twitter is the one thing we're allowed to dead name.
Well, when the owner dead names his own daughter, I think I feel no sympathy dead naming his company.
So I think we can all agree that Elon Musk is probably a cannibal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Like
He definitely would be if given the opportunity, right?
I have no proof for this, but yes.
At least we all agree.
I have little doubt that he would not eat Armie Hammer if given the opportunity.
So the fight between him and Zuck was actually who's going to eat the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Loser's dinner.
Yeah.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Not anymore, I guess.
They're both weird. So they were working on The Wolf Among Us 2.
This makes me so sad. I've been looking forward to The Wolf Among Us 2 for so long. The first one was so good.
So The Wolf Among Us, for those who don't know, is an adaptation of the Fables comic. and they originally made a game of it. This was the original version of Telltale Games. Then Telltale Games went out of business, and then they came back.
Yep.
They were working on this Wolf Among Us 2. They have not released any statements about what is happening with that game or what the current state of that game is. But when you have an artist out there saying they laid off most of us, that doesn't particularly bode well for the Wolf Among Us 2.
I'm so sad. It like I made my students watch it or watch the first 30 minutes of it to do a rhetorical analysis of it, because I was like, this is art. It's so good.
I actually taught Fables in a class. I taught it as a class on graphic novels, and that was one of the ones I taught as part of that.
And I just all of their art style is one, like the Walking Dead series that they do is one that initially got me into. I had watched something at a conference that about they essentially, the folks in the conference had people play the first chapter of The Walking Dead, and then talked about when people embody avatars, in the decisions that they make, are they making it as the decisions that they would make or what they think the character would make. So it was really a fascinating a study. And so that's what that initially turned me on to Telltale Games. And then I played, of course, the Batman series and stuff like that. I just really dig their art style, and it played perfectly with Fables, I thought. So this makes me so sad. I've been looking forward to this game for a long time.
Yeah, that Walking Dead game was really groundbreaking at the time, as far as interactive narrative and the branching paths.
Yes.
And you don't just fail the story, just sort of rewrites itself. I mean, it doesn't, but that's how it feels.
Yeah.
And so obviously I think we've talked about Telltale on here before. At one point they were riding high. They had every licensed IP under the sun, and were making games of it. In the wake of how successful they were with The Walking Dead. There are games they made before it, including Back to the Future. But, they were riding very high. It sounds like that they just took on too much originally, and they kind of collapsed, under that weight. But when they came back, it seemed like they were doing something much more manageable. Right? Just taking off the Wolf Among Us, that seemed like a much smarter move. Don't take on 100 different IPs.
Yeah.
If this really is, most of us, right? It's hard to know exactly what somebody means by that. That could be 51%. That's most of us. But
it could be most of the artists, but not the game devs, and not
right.
We don't know.
Did they lay off the artist because the artist's work is mostly done and they're going to finish off this game and put it out, or have they, collapsed as a studio?
Yeah.
And it's difficult to know right now, but it does seem like there were, at least major layoffs happening there. Team 17 is also reportedly planning, quote unquote, significant job losses as part of a restructuring of the company. Team 17 is most famous for the Worms games, the multiplayer Worms games.
Yeah.
But they've also gotten really heavy into publishing in recent years. They publish a lot of games now. So again, every time we talk about this and we talk about layoffs, obviously our hearts go out to anybody who's losing a job. It's always rough to lose a job. It's pretty earth-shattering for a lot of people. It's not always easy to bounce back from that. But from our sort of perspective as a gaming podcast, I think this is a sign of there are major shifts going on in the game industry right now.
Yeah.
And that a lot of these companies staffed up heavily during COVID because everybody was playing games because they couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of course correcting, and that course correcting is pretty ugly.
Yeah. I know. I feel like every week for the past month, we're talking about at least 2 studios laying people off, and it just sucks.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Epic Games last week, and they laid off, was it 17% or something of their staff, which was about 1,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're that big, 17% doesn't sound much until you're that big, and that's a significant number of people losing jobs. And they're in North Carolina, I think it is. So it's not like there's a huge game industry there. So you're talking about people maybe having to relocate to find work. It's a little harder than if you lose your job maybe in Southern California.
Right.
Yeah.
So this story has come out. Bungie's former HR manager, a woman by the name of Ingrid Alm, I assume that's how you pronounce the last name, is suing them for wrongful termination after speaking up for a black employee. Now, this is her statement about what happened and everything, but she claims that a black employee at Bungie said that they were being, they felt like they were being discriminated against. They went to her as the HR manager. She then went to their supervisor and said, hey, this is the only black employee here in this group, and this person says they feel like they're being discriminated against. They apparently just kind of blew her off entirely in response, to which the manager over this employee apparently then came back and was like, well, maybe we should just fire this person and get rid of them.
Because that's not discriminating against them at all.
So she apparently then went to the person in charge of diversity and inclusion at Bungie and reported this situation, to which they said, they went to the manager and said, hey, maybe instead of firing this person, you should just give them a written warning about unsatisfactory work, right? Because this is going to look really bad for us if you fire this person. And given like the track record here, at which point they apparently also wrote up a warning to this HR manager, Ingrid Alm, and then told her that as part of this warning was like, hey, your job might be on the way out. You maybe should start looking for another job.
Wow.
And then apparently locked her out of the systems, like HR software and everything that you get into, and told her, thank you for resigning.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, again, this is her version of events. But apparently this all happened after IGN published a report about discriminatory practices within Bungie. So apparently that was the catalyst that led to this person speaking up and to Ingrid responding and everything. Again, this is their version. This is one-sided and everything that we're hearing right now. Bungie has not released any statements in response to this. I will note that part of the reason companies don't really offer a response when journalists reach out often is for legal reasons. They have lawyers telling them do not comment on this without at least running it through us first. But this fits a track record, right? That obviously with the reporting on this, but also with a lot of these companies that we've seen. We've seen this with Activision. We've seen this with Nintendo. People, particularly people of minority groups, whether that's racial or women or LGBTQ or whatever the group may be, feeling like they're being excluded, if not outright discriminated against in game development.
Well, like, speaking as someone who has not worked in games but has had her boss tell her that this is not something that happened in the recent past. I just want to clarify. Didn't happen here, not in the recent past. But I did.
Oh, Shelby. How dare you?
But I did have a boss where there was a conflict, and my boss looked me in the eye and told me, if you can't do this job, it would be better for you to make that decision than for me to make it, wouldn't it? And so, like, again, not having experience with working in the game industry, but having that experience, that it just, everything about this makes my blood boil and turn to ice at the same time.
Well, and it's also just like, yeah, the gaming industry definitely has a history of this, like, Gamergate. That whole thing began with a lot of, like, small instances of this. And then, of course, you have, like, folks turning on, what was her name that had the...
Anita Sarkeesian?
Yes. And, yeah, it just... Like, it's really difficult, like, because so many, like, marginalized folks play games as, like, as an outlet, as a way to, like, deal with some of the things that they go through. And so to then have, like, that industry be then the catalyst for some of these issues like that, like, it's disheartening.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting when you say a lot of traditionally marginalized people find a home in games, right? Because games are this sort of, all right, tell your own story.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
some kid who is trans, who is terrified to come out as trans to the people in their life, can play as a character of the opposite gender and no one bats an eye.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so it doesn't even have to be a game that features, the representation of a marginalized group, right? Oftentimes people sort of find that within the game, or they project that into the game, right? Like, and so often those people then move into the game industry, right? Because of that love. And, like, I'm always kind of amazed, like, growing up, the people covering video games, like, from a journalistic perspective, were always, like, white men. Like, there were almost no women. There were almost no minorities. There were almost, if there was a minority, it was Asian usually. There was, certainly no openly queer people, not openly, like, to the public, and they might have been to their coworkers and everything. And that has so radically shifted just really over the last decade or so, where, you see, I would almost argue disproportionately, you see, like, trans people represented in games media and everything. And I always hate to say disproportionately because I don't actually know, and I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing. It's not. But, like, you see a lot of people, like, kind of moving to that and everything. And, when you see stories like this, you're like, okay, yeah, there's not a long history of a lot of Black game developers, and this is probably why.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this with women before, right? There's a reason women aren't working in game development a lot of times, despite some of the most groundbreaking games in history, like, King's Quest and River Raid and, like, all these others, Portal, being developed by women. So,
But garbage like this keeps freaking happening.
Yeah, and I think this is a good argument for why that needs to continue to be talked about.
Yeah.
So, obviously we'll see what develops of this and everything. There's a lawsuit. We'll see how that gets handled and everything. Oftentimes lawsuits of this nature get settled out of court because that's easier on the company. Bungie is now owned by Sony. So it might just be easier to settle this. We may never get real answers. Let's see. We all laughed at the PlayStation Portal, and Sony may be getting the last laugh here because it is selling out in Japan.
How do they have that kind of money? That's what I want to know.
Like the Japanese people in general?
Yeah. Like, how do you... Just everything about this. Everything about the PlayStation Portal makes me baffled.
I think what's really gets me is, right, so at one point they were like, well, you can't actually use this outside of your house. I think they've since clarified you can. So you could come to work and you just have to have a Wi-Fi connection. But, in Japan, like, homes tend to be smaller, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons they don't like really big game consoles. They like small game consoles, and often like traditionally when they would bring them to the US, they'd make them bigger because we're stupid and we think everything needs to be big. You know, and so like thinking about this, if you don't have a big home, this device makes even less sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're living in an apartment in Tokyo, this thing feels like it makes less sense to me. But maybe I'm just misunderstanding like how they're using it. I don't know if this is a lot of people buying this and taking it to work, and you know, streaming at work. And I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about this, and I got a whole new Switch and a card to try and play Mortal Kombat on the Switch. And part of what I was thinking here is that I could just do that with the Switch rather than buying this PlayStation Portal thing. But now the reason I got it on the Switch rather than the PlayStation 5 is because the television that we use, like, I don't always have a lot of time to be able to use that television.
Right.
And I could have gotten Mortal Kombat 1 on the PlayStation 5 and had a PlayStation Portal to play it. So I still, the price point is still a little too high for me, but I understand it a little more than when we first talked about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think Mario said, you know, he made the same argument. Like he could understand it, but, you know, I just don't know how big that user base for that particular situation you're talking about, right? Like I know I've heard some people with kids say, well, I can't take the TV because the kids want to watch Bluey or whatever they're watching.
Yeah.
And so like this lets me sit in the room with them and play a game.
Justin, the biggest thing wrong with that statement is thinking that the adults are not also watching Bluey.
True. That's probably true. But, you know, I completely get that from that perspective, right? So, but I don't know how big of an audience that is to like actually make this thing successful. And obviously,
and like we said, it was way more expensive than it had any right to be.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a very nice piece of hardware, but it's just streaming, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't do anything else. So, but hey, you know, egg on our face, at least for the Japanese market. Let's see, April 2024. That is the dead date for the 3DS and Wii U online. And starting next April, your 3DS and Wii U online games will no longer work.
Oh, I really liked the Wii U. It was like I was kind of sad that they didn't do more for marketing for that particular console because I liked it way more than the Wii actually. So it kind of makes me sad. Like I left my Wii U back in Boise, but yeah, it's still
I think the Wii U has sort of gotten this reevaluation in the last few years as they've ported a lot of its best games over to the Switch. And so you start getting like Super Mario 3D World and Pikmin 3 and like all these games. And people are like, wait, there were really good games on this system.
3D World was amazing. I loved that game.
I forgot that Pikmin 3 was Wii U.
Yeah, Bayonetta 2 was an exclusive for the Wii U when it came out, and they ported over Bayonetta 1 as well. I mean, there's all these games, you know, Mario Kart 8, which is the biggest selling game in the world. Like, that was a Wii U game. They just ported it over and said it's deluxe now.
Yep. I was about to say they added like where you could have an extra item, and that was basically the difference.
Yeah, and they included the DLC in the deluxe version.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good games. Super Mario Maker, the original, is still the best of those games. Yeah, so that, I think that system has been reevaluated as people start looking back and going, wait, all these ports coming over were originally Wii U games. And technically, so was Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
So,
I
I mean, it released at the same time across both platforms.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I forgot about that.
yeah, see, Wii U, better system than you think it was.
And Super Smash 4, too.
Yep.
I'd say, and Wii U probably had better graphics than Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch.
Honestly, yeah.
it would really be hard, OJ. Okay, so some more negative news. I really didn't mean to load this up with negative news. Former Ubisoft executives have been detained by police in France as part of a sexual assault investigation. I really included this because we have talked about Ubisoft in the past, and Ubisoft's apparently like just horrendous culture, particularly with their executives.
I feel like after things settled around Blizzard, Ubisoft rose up as the new demon.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we used to have the horror theme for every time we talked about Blizzard. Now we have it for every time we talk about Ubisoft.
Yeah, and Ubisoft, they've had several high-profile issues with this. Particularly, it feels like with sexual misconduct, right? Like more than anything, and I think it feels like at this point, is this company ever going to get fixed, or is this just like the frat house on campus that you warn freshman women to stay away from because it is just so institutionalized? And does that ever get fixed without somebody, sort of coming in and just breaking down that entire company at this point?
Yeah.
Which is a shame because Ubisoft makes some very good games and everything, and I'm sure there are lots of very good people there working, but certainly some of the people in charge seem to be very, very bad. All right, so this is slightly better news, I guess, depending on your perspective. CD Projekt Red is teaming with Anonymous Content, which is a film and television developed studio, to develop a live-action Cyberpunk 2077 project. They don't say if this is a film or a TV show. They just say that it's live action. So how excited are you for a Cyberpunk 2077 premium streaming series?
At least they can't release it unfinished, right?
They might find a way.
I mean, The Mandalorian, they've released episodes with like people in the background that they have to go back and edit the episode after it's been released.
That's true. I spoke too soon.
So I sort of feel like nothing's guaranteed at this point. I think my question is, do they get Keanu Reeves for this? He's in the game. And Idris Elba as well.
Yeah.
So, like, there's two kind of big stars. Do you get the two of them into this?
Are they cannibals?
Honestly, I've heard Keanu Reeves, like, across the board is, like, one of those folks that's, like, on everybody's nice list.
Yeah.
So if he's a cannibal, that ruins my life.
I don't think Keanu Reeves is a cannibal.
Nah.
Maybe Keanu Reeves only eats people if they really want it. Like, it's a favor to them.
It's like consensual
favor?
cannibal.
What?
Or he eats other cannibals.
Yeah.
Like a Dexter situation.
How do you... you know what? No, I'm not going to ask.
Well, I mean, there was that story. I don't know if you remember. It's been probably 20 years about the German guy who was advertising, looking for somebody.
Yeah.
Yep.
What?
Yep. They actually...
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. There was...
Alicia, how do you not know this?
I guess I'm not up to date on German cannibals. I'm sorry.
Well, and there was...
I'm sorry, mine's from reality.
There was a show on HBO called Room 404 that like did a take on it where they like so Room 404 is about this hotel room that's Room 404 and
Like Error 404?
kind of yeah and like people like they had different skits and stuff so
It's like an anthology show.
Yes. And one of them was these two individuals show up and are talking about like kind of a business exchange and basically one of them wants to eat part of the other one like and so yeah like it was based loosely on this story yeah
So there was a real life German dude who was
Many people. It's not just one.
What?
Wait, are you saying there are many cannibals or there are many German people?
Both. But in this specific instance, there are many people who try to find other people who want to be eaten or people to eat them.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What?
See, this part about cannibals I do know because I recently found somebody on TikTok who talks about it, and which is why I was so confused. I didn't know about the other cannibals, and I have to ask.
I thought OJ was going to say, I recently found somebody on TikTok to eat. It's like, oh no.
Honestly,
What does TikTok become?
Yeah, I probably.
I was gonna say, I feel like this is something that if it should exist at all, I use should very lightly here.
Yeah.
But if it should exist at all, it feels like something that should have existed in like 2008 when people were developing weird apps and like who needs farmersonly.com when you can get cannibals only?
Well, it's illegal, so that's the reason there's no app for it.
So there is a version legally where you can do it, and I just saw some of this stuff. So there was a guy who had to have.
It's only in Alabama.
He had to have his foot and part of his leg amputated. And then he messaged his friends and he was like, hey, remember we were saying if there was a way we could ethically try human meat? Well, this is I'm getting this. And then they cooked it up and him and his friends ate his meat. So
This is so disturbing.
Okay.
Well, like I've heard before that the
Yellow
Donner,
Jackets is fiction.
no, the Donner Party, the caravan where they got stranded, and then the survivor who was like open about it later, and like talked about how human flesh tastes like chicken apparently, and then went on to open a restaurant. I'm like, I don't know if I would ever go eat at that restaurant. Justin just gave the biggest sigh.
Yeah.
thank you for turning into the Saluki Cannibal Cast.
This is a really weird episode.
Remember before when we were like, maybe we'll stay on track this time?
I feel like you jinxed us.
You were the one who said it.
Well, Mario brought it up.
No, you
We'll
said
blame
it.
Mario because he's not here.
Yeah.
I feel very honored that this is my first episode.
I feel really bad. Like, this is your first episode, but you're also a new faculty member here. This is how we initiate you. This is actually a big goof. Like,
Honestly, this feels like home.
Cannibals feel like home?
I hope not too much.
Weird stuff. Let me clarify. I'm no Army Hammer.
I think you have at least one cannibal.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing a spooky shirt that has like all the killers on it. Like,
I think that's Leatherface, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
It's right there.
Okay.
Oh, it is.
So
It
I
is
did
your
this.
fault.
I
You
did.
jinxed us.
You brought the cannibals into the room.
All right. You brought the cannibals into the room is a good episode title. Mario will not listen to this episode as soon as he sees the title.
Mario won't. Ryan won't. Our moms won't.
This will be the one episode my mom listens to. Like, it'd be my luck. This is the one she's like, what is Justin up to?
I mean, since this is the only episode I've been on, this is the only episode my mom's going to listen to, and she's coming to visit next week. So.
Oh no.
Will Sandy listen to this one?
I hope not. I feel like somehow I'm responsible for this. This is not going into my promotion review. All right, let's move on. Something a little less controversial and maybe happier. And maybe, Alicia, you can talk about this. They released a trailer for, is this?
Pokesume.
Okay, so that's how I thought maybe you pronounced it. Pokesume. This is the live-action Pokemon drama series. That is their phrasing, not mine.
I was also very confused by that phrase when I saw it at first, to be fair. I was like, are we like doing Detective Pikachu movie again, or?
So they did actually release some information about this. The main
Thank God, because the trailer was in Japanese and did not have English subtitles, so I had no idea what was happening.
The impression I got is you might not, even if you'd watched that, even if you did know Japanese. So the lead character is Madoka Agaki, is being played by a former pop star, is my understanding, who has transitioned into acting. She graduates college and moves to Tokyo, feels overwhelmed with her new career until her mom mails her childhood Game Boy with Pokemon Red, which sounds like a good setup for like maybe a movie or a single episode of a show. How this is going to get stretched into an entire show is I just don't know.
Can I ask you, have you ever watched any Japanese dramas or or Chinese dramas or Korean dramas?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, how many have you watched?
Oh, not. I mean, I'm not gonna say I've watched a ton, but like, I mean, I think my thing is just from a narrative standpoint. How does this function over a long period of time, or is that even the like? Is that even the premise?
Having watched a lot, I will promise you, they will make it stretch out for.
I was gonna say, does she imagine Pokemon coming out of the game or something?
No.
Like that,
So if you watch the trailer, she's playing her old Game Boy. So it's not like you have Pikachu running along behind her. It's the nostalgia of having the game itself. But
oh man, I was thinking like they were gonna come out of the game.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, me too.
oh, you have the sads. It's a Pikachu.
Voiced by Charles Martinet. It's me, Pikachu. Let's go. That's why he's retiring.
No,
I mean,
I really think like this is kind of perfect, honestly, because we just wrapped up this year with Ash and Pikachu's story. And so like getting to bring back that nostalgia of the original Pokemon games and getting to have even with I love Gen 1. I love Red, Blue, and Yellow. And I fully acknowledge that is nostalgia classes because those games are held together with duct tape and dreams. But like getting to have that and I think like, because one of the things when I watched the trailer, I was like, when is this set? Because there's one shot where you see another character playing a Switch, and I was like, wait, huh? Because I was assuming this was, set in the 90s when the game first came out. But I think it's going to be a really fun and really nostalgic, and like getting to go back to, don't get me wrong, I love the convenience of wireless connection, like being able to trade with people literally anywhere in the world in Pokemon games. But there also was something really great about you have to be 6 feet from each other with one end of the cable plugged into your Game Boy and the other end plugged into theirs. Like,
but this isn't going back to that, right? Because it's
no,
set
she's
today.
playing, but she's playing her Game Boy, her original Game Boy. So like she's doing that.
But I mean, is she doing that?
Yes. Did you watch the trailer?
Yeah, but I mean, like,
she's literally doing that. She's playing Pokemon Red on her original Game Boy.
yes, I know that part. But like, you're talking about like swapping, like using the
Yeah.
infrared or the link cable and stuff.
Yeah.
So
There's a moment in the trailer where you see she's got the Game Boy there, she's got the link cable hooked up.
okay, like I guess I just don't get how this is going to be like a series. So like Christine, when you say like, is she going to be imagining like the
Right.
Pokemon into her life, right? Like
Right.
that makes a lot of sense, right? Like that's a sort of fantastical way that you tap into that nostalgia and bring
Right.
it into a show. This very much looks like it's The Office, and Pam's mom sends her Game Boy.
No,
and like she's
not
going
at
to play.
all.
She's going to play the Game Boy.
That
And
is not the vibe I got at all.
okay, that's fine. Alicia, that's fine that you didn't get that vibe.
No, but
I'm telling you my reaction to
Yeah,
it.
but
Well, my reaction's not wrong. Okay,
No.
other people can have different reactions. So that's very much how this like kind of comes off. Like, and like just thinking it from a narrative standpoint, like that seems difficult to like carry over. Maybe they will, and maybe it'll be like fantastic and everything. Like, but like just looking at it, like the setup doesn't, the setup's not grabbing me at the moment, right? But Alicia, it obviously is grabbing you. So
Well, I guess I see the setup and I think of it as it's mostly going to be about her, dealing with her new career and all that. Like the stuff with Pokemon is going to be part of her character. It's not going to be it's
Like the primary driving.
right.
platform.
It's not going to be okay. This episode she's going to beat Brock, and this episode she's going to beat Misty. It's going to be she's dealing with stuff in her career, and okay, you're stressed out at the end of the day. You go home and play Pokemon, and you remember how great it is.
yeah, and like I said, I think that makes a lot of sense for like a movie. Just like stretch it over a series. It seems like it'll be difficult, but like maybe they'll pull it off and it'll be really cool.
It's kind of hard to tell until you have more information, I think, on the main character to see like what types of things she is going through.
Right.
Because it's like kind of going through the nostalgia of playing Pokemon after a stressful situation. Like how many of those stressful situations will they put her in? I think is what will determine whether or not it's a series versus I think like a one-off show or a movie or something like that.
Well, and the other thing is too, most a lot of like Japanese and Chinese and Korean dramas are one season.
Yeah.
They're not going to try to stretch this over
Yeah.
5 seasons. It's going to be 20 episodes.
Yeah.
It's more
'cause
the British sort of setup of we're going to do 1 or 2 seasons tops and
Right.
move on. I mean, even The Office. I mentioned The Office. The Office is 2 seasons in
Yep.
the original
Yep.
British version.
Because I do agree. I don't think that you could make this into like a U.S. series where it's 7 seasons and
Unless she went through like every Pokemon
Every
generation.
generation. Each generation's a new season.
Yeah.
I mean you could do the Reply series jumps years and does the stuff like
It's
that.
like, is
but-
each situation based on a Pokemon? Like, does she go through a period of time where she also cannot get out of bed, and then she like finds a Snorlax, and they become besties? You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Her neighbor plays a whistle and
Yeah, I think so. Like, I could see that, right? Like, is this going to be Carrie writing her article at the end of each Sex and the City episode, right? Is this her like using that as like a metaphor for how she deals with things?
Right.
Like, and then it becomes like, this isn't really a Pokemon series. Pokemon is part of this.
which is what you were saying.
Yeah. Like, that could entirely like work that way, right? I think them pitching it, right, like in this and everything, and the Pokemon company sort of pitching it as a Pokemon series is maybe misleading, but like again, we'll see, right? Like,
Yeah.
it feels like it's a Poke fan series.
yeah.
It's about her relationship with the
Like
series.
they're banking on the nostalgia to get people to watch it for like either a season or a movie or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that like turns out and everything. I assume we'll get like a subtitled release at least.
Oh yeah, I mean if even if they don't do anything official, there'll be subtitles.
Somebody will
Yeah,
modify it.
yeah, fan subs will happen.
Let's see. iRacing has acquired the NASCAR license to develop a console game starting for 2025. If you don't know, iRacing makes very, very super detailed simulation racing games.
Oh.
So like very much more authentic than even like Forza or Gran Turismo. These are like people who in their home have the full like setup with a steering wheel and the pedals and everything are playing iRacing. And so them getting a license, but then they say it's for consoles. So I don't really know, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's kind of a different market when you start thinking of consoles.
Yeah.
Consoles aren't really known for super hardcore simulations.
Right.
So iRacing is an Apple product, I'm assuming?
No.
No? Okay.
I think
it sounds like it would be.
yeah. I think it was just riding off of that. You remember when everybody was naming every product
Yeah, okay.
in the wake of the iPod?
Well, because I was just wondering, because like with Apple saying, "Hey, our next phone is going to be the best console there is," I was like, maybe that was where this was coming from. But okay, no, I remember when everything was I.
I don't know. Maybe you can play this on the iPhone. I'm sure you can play it on Mac, but I don't actually know. I say that like everything's on Mac. It's absolutely not. But I just thought this was kind of neat because I really like the original game. Boy and His Blob collection is coming out. This contains the original NES and Game Boy games, which are different games. And this is coming to Switch and PS4 and PS5 soon. I think in the next few weeks. It's $10. It's just those two games. It's not including the one that they put out like in 2012. They made a new one. But that has been an HD version of that. It's currently available on modern consoles, so you can get that separately. A Boy and His Blob is made by the creator of Pitfall. And it is a David Crane. It's a really weird game. You are a boy. You have a blob.
What?
And you can make it transform into different things by feeding it jelly beans. And the flavor of jelly bean you feed it determines what it changes into. And there's like these puns at work based on the flavor of the jelly bean. So it's really a lot of experimentation as you kind of this open world environment that you have to explore using the blob. And like it was notable at the time because you could, use up all your jelly beans and then you were just stuck and you had to reset the game.
Oh, yeah.
But it was also really cool at the time because it just kind of played differently than anything else that was out there. And obviously the blob is very charming because, he's
Who doesn't want to be changed by jelly beans?
Well, he looks like a giant marshmallow and you're feeding him jelly beans, which as a kid, what's better than that? So, that's a good game. I never played the Game Boy version, so I don't really know a whole lot about it. But I also don't know how easy those games would be to go back to now.
Yeah.
They're rough. When I tried to play the original Boy and His Blob on the NES on the emulator, it was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. That game was rough at the time. And, it doesn't have any of the sort of conveniences I think, associate with games today. Let's see. The last thing here is Lego Animal Crossing sets are coming in March of next year. I don't know. Do any of you buy the video game Lego stuff?
Well, a friend of mine did, and I ended up putting together half of it when he was away. And so, I saw this on the list, and I told Alicia, I was like, I hate that I'm going to spend money on this.
So I have to ask, which one did you put together?
The one that was the question cube.
Okay.
But it was the Mario 64 one.
Yeah.
Is the one where it kind of splits apart and it's a play set?
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of them is like Bowser, you can really spin him around in one section, like in all of the boss fights in that one. And there's the penguin slide in one part. Yeah. He had bought that set and he had spent a lot of money on it. And I was like, oh, I would never spend that much money. And as soon as he walked out of the room, I'm like, I'm going to put together. So now that I am here and I have an adult job and I can afford toys, I'm probably going to get one of these.
So, one of my partners is a big Lego person, and so we have the NES with a TV on it, and it's a little kind of interactive.
Oh, that's so cool.
And also the big giraffe type thing from Horizon.
Oh, yeah.
We have one of those, and I think we have another one too. I can't remember. I think he has a Pokemon one somewhere. I know I bought him
you have
a
a
little
giraffe, and
Gengar.
I have a giraffe thing, and I haven't seen a picture.
Yeah, well, it's a far cry from a giraffe, but it's an animal that has a long neck. But that's as close as it comes to giraffe.
Okay.
It's a robot giraffe, basically.
Yeah. Well,
And I haven't seen a picture.
Yeah. We'll find it. We'll find it. Yeah, and then so we have some of them. He doesn't like Animal Crossing, but he loves Lego, so we'll see if we get these or not.
I will say they put out a trailer that doesn't actually show the sets, but shows the little minifigures.
Okay.
And like I do like actually really like the minifigures.
The minifigs look so cute.
I would just buy those. Like I don't care anything about the set because it's going to be too much more money than I want to spend. This is the same reason. Like I really want the Atari 2600 one, but it's like $250, which I'm like I could buy like a whole game console for that. It's difficult to justify that. But I do have the. I may have mentioned this before. I have the Seinfeld set where it's like the set and it has the lighting and everything up on it and everything. And I'm like, how much Seinfeld merchandise gets actually made?
Yeah.
I will buy this because I think it's really cool.
I think we have that too, maybe. Or we were going to get it. I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. They've done ones for different shows. They did Friends and The Office. And I'm sure there's a Doctor Who set. We'll ask Johnny.
At
There has
least
to be,
one. At least one.
Yeah.
Ask Craig. He loves Legos.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, they're just the perfect gift for the two of them,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Right.
Doctor Who and Lego. Yeah, so I mean that's neat. Obviously, we've talked about Nintendo saying they're an entertainment company now instead of just a video game company, and this is what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like Nintendo is going to be leaning more and more into this sort of stuff. I mean, Nintendo's always been big into merchandise, but they certainly have leaned into it a lot over the last 5 or so years.
For sure.
All right, that does it for news. That brings us to our big question of the week. And it is World Smile Day, which is, more dentist propaganda for you. But so the question is, which video game character can always bring a smile to your face? So we all have favorite video game characters, but sometimes there's that character that just seeing them, like you get a big grin on your face because for whatever variety of different reasons. So OJ, why don't we start with you? Which video game character always brings a smile to your face?
All right, so I'm going to answer for Ryan quick and say Waluigi.
Waluigi, number one.
But for me, myself, and just, again, remembering it as I'm playing through it, Bayonetta, I just love Bayonetta so much.
Yeah.
She is just fantastic, right? It's like, yes, queen,
Yes.
stomp them to death with your hair boot.
Yes.
Right? So I just love everything about her. I love a character having like a woman just embracing her sexiness and sexuality and like not for men, but for
Because.
Yeah, just because. And
For death and destruction.
yeah, absolutely. To kill a bunch of old men who really tried to kill all of her people, right? So just absolutely love it. Also, I have the fact that she's fighting angels and demons too is because a lot of my religious trauma. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh yes, I am beating up this weird, creepy angel. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Japan gets away with that much easier than U.S. developers do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, but just love everything about Bayonetta except for the game itself.
well, the secret to every video game is to dethrone God.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
It's amazing how many Japanese games that is the plot to.
There's actually a video essay that's like 45 minutes long that it keeps popping up in my recommended. That's like, why does every JRPG end with you killing God?
Yeah. Mario had bought me a Bayonetta sticker, and I'm just waiting to get a new laptop to put it on too, because I was like, I want to put it on my laptop, but I have to wait because the one that I have right now is on its last legs, and but I'm very excited that I have a Bayonetta sticker to put on.
So great.
And then that'll bring you like a smile every time you look at your laptop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, while you're writing your dissertation, is quite the achievement.
Yeah.
All right, Alicia, what about you? Which video game character always brings a smile to your face? You are not allowed to answer any black hedgehogs.
Wasn't even on my list, actually. No. There's a lot of game characters that bring a smile to my face, but let's be real here. There's one who is more powerful than my depression and my anxiety combined. And it's got to be Kirby. Just the best, the absolute best.
Speaking of marshmallows.
Right? He's simple enough, even like me not being artistically inclined at all, I can draw him. I literally drew him here on my sheet. He's just, there's a really great video. There's a YouTube channel called Designing For, and they kind of do deep dives into specific characters and their design and all that. And they have a video on Kirby being designed for friendship. Mm-hmm. And really kind of talking about, if you get into the lore of the Kirby games, like, talk about killing gods. Yeah. Like, Kirby lore can go so dark.
That is the post of the last game, the 3D game.
Yeah.
Forgotten Land.
Yeah.
The title.
Yeah. But it's like, but you don't have to go into that if you don't want to. Because Kirby, at the end of the day, wants everybody to be friends and everybody to be happy and just have a piece of cheesecake. And, like, there is no more pure character than Kirby.
It's more like a benevolent god rather than a vengeful god.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He is exactly that. And
He just wants you to think he's benevolent. When he finally turns on you and like eats you,
I mean,
you chose the ultimate cannibal.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have to accept that Kirby's cannibal.
And now the episode has come full circle.
No, but like I listen to video game music to keep focused and everything, and there's videos that are 45 minutes of Kirby music to cure your depression, and they're the most wholesome space on the internet. Best character, best everything, best cannibal.
He is the Dexter cannibal.
He is Nintendo's he's become like a unique sort of mascot within Nintendo, right? Because Mario, of course, Sonic came along, and the way they countered Mario was to say, look, Sonic has attitude, right? Like, that's how sort of bland Mario was.
Yeah.
But, like, Kirby is, well, Mario's maybe a little too edgy. Let's have the, character that's super friendly to everyone.
The most wholesome character in existence.
Babies can like Kirby, right?
Because Kirby is a baby.
Unless you get on his bad side, then he eats you.
But even they've confirmed that when he does that he later spits him back out. So he doesn't ever actually kill anybody.
Yeah.
You tell that to me. Like I talked about earlier that my sister and I would play Smash Bros. She would eat me and then poop me off the side as a rock.
No, that's Yoshi. That's a Yoshi thing, not a Kirby thing.
I do feel like that's a completely valid strategy.
At the time, I didn't think so. Yeah.
Because there were dishes that were on the line.
Right?
All right. Christina, how about you?
For me, I was thinking about every Fall Guys outfit I've ever seen makes me the most happy. I think it's because that game is just supposed to be like you being stupid and just kind of throwing yourself out there, almost like what is that show that that's based off the old Japanese shows, the game
Wipeout?
show? Wipeout. Yeah. It's like basically the video game version of Wipeout to me.
Yeah.
And
Or
so,
Takashi's Castle.
yes. And so it's like every time I see a different outfit, it's so lovely. That and the new show the new video game that I've been watching where you're the animals. And it's like, it's kind of hard to control.
Party animals?
Party animals. That's what it is. I was like, Animal Wars? No, that's not right. For that one, like the Fall Guys ones, they're so funny, right? And the fact that they like run into everything and they're just meant to be ridiculous. With the party animals, it's like, it's hard to control them because they're so wiggly. And for some reason, like that, the fact that the physics don't work quite right just make me it's frustrating to operate, but so funny to watch and make me smile like a lot.
Yeah, so Party Animals is sort of aping Gang Beasts. If you've ever seen or played Gang Beast and everything, and it's cool to see like somebody come along and say, "Hey, we're going to make another one of those."
Yeah.
In that style and everything, and it looks fantastic. I haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Yeah.
Because it's a multiplayer party game.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I haven't had a chance to play it either, but I've watched quite a bit of it on like YouTube and Twitch and stuff, and it it's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah, so my answer is one that I go to sometimes. It's Karnov. I love Karnov. Karnov is started out a villain. He was a Russian strongman, and if you play Bad Dudes, where the president has been kidnapped by ninjas, are you a bad enough dude to rescue him?
That is the best video game summary I've ever heard in my life.
That is literally the opening of the game. That's what it tells you.
That is beautiful.
It was the 80s. and so anyways, he's a villain in that game. Eventually they like give him his own game and he like breathes fire. And he's this bald, like fat Russian guy, and he is ridiculous looking, and the fact that they keep bringing him back, so he shows up in like games every once in a while, like he'll be a character in a fighting game sometimes. What is it? Fighter's History, I think is the fighting game that he's in. And every time I see him, I'm like, yay, Karnov. Like, people remember Karnov. He hasn't been forgotten. And like, what a weird character to be a hero. Like at a time when video game characters all kind of had that 80s, like, action hero look to them and everything. Like to make Karnov the hero of a game and like to continue to bring that back, it just feels like a big joke. It feels like everybody's like this big goof on this character, and every time they do it, I'm like, this character is fantastic. Yes, keep bringing him back. I feel this like akinness to Karnov in the same way that I feel like with characters like Birdo. Like every time they bring Birdo back, I'm like, yay, Birdo! Like you're so weird, Birdo. But we all love you for it. Please bring Birdo back as many times as possible. So every time Birdo shows up in like Mario Kart or something, I'm like, this is fantastic. Well done, Nintendo. So that does it for this week. I want to thank everybody who is listening. Obviously, you can check out more at salukigames.com, but also thank you to my co-host for this week. So thank you, Alicia, OJ, and especially Christina. You survived your first episode.
Yay! Through the cannibal.
I'll say it's really impressive you survived with all the cannibals in the room.
I brought him into the room.
Yeah.
It's really her fault. Like, we have to blame her. She's the new person.
If you are a cannibal, send your hate mail to justin.young@saluki.edu.
No, please don't tell them how to get in touch with me.
It's okay. We're not in Germany.
I'm pretty open and accepting of most people. Cannibals, I feel like, is where I draw the line. I don't want to associate with your kind. I'm sorry. It's very illiberal of me, but
Kirby is going to be angry at you. You better watch out.
He'll just bounce against me for a while. But anyways, that does it for this week's episode. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back soon with a new episode.